Hey, welcome back. So in the last couple of tutorials, we went over the game design document and the process to start designing your game. Now, we're still making the rollerball game, but you're going to start looking for assets and kind of putting together what you want your game to be, the feel, the mood, the materials, so all those different things. And we'll get more into that as we get to the point where we start kind of building out the game. But hopefully you found some assets, and I'll start throwing some assets into my examples as I'm moving along so you can kind of see how to import them and how it feels. But for this tutorial, I wanted to make it so that we could actually damage our player. So as you're thinking about assets and kind of playing around with your game and moving things around and testing it, there's an actual way for your player to take damage. And if you wanted to, you could even cause a kind of a fall through and die type scenario. So let's go ahead and jump in real quick and take a look at that. All right, so right here is my demo world, and I have this lava flow happening right here, and I've created this damage volume that's around it right here, and you can see that that's kind of what's set it up right here. So let me go ahead and hit play real quick. So now when I go through here, as I roll through it, and I just kind of pause in it, like if I fell in the lava flow or something like that, I start to take damage. Sort of like the fire one, but this is just an empty volume that you can stick around anything to be able to take damage. And in fact, every time you throw a new one of these out, for example, I have it selected right here, the damage volume, we have a variable here that we can change right here. So if I wanted to have sort of an instant die when I go into lava, now when I go into lava and I stop for a second, boom, I instantly die and my death screen comes up. All right, so you can, obviously set it for whatever you want, but that's kind of how that's going to work. All right, so as you can see, I've kind of been playing around in this world a little bit. I've drug some things in to kind of get ready for some of our future tutorials, and one of them is I've created this material for a surface area that has a lava flow. I will get to that in a future tutorial and show you how to do that. But what we're going to do now is we're going to make our damage volume that we want to have. So I'm going to go back in here, and then inside of this folder, I haven't made it yet. So let's go ahead and so we have pickups, interactables, game mode. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this volume. You can also call it trigger because, volumes, because there's going to be more than one in here. All right. I'm going to double click, open that up. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click. I'm going to create a blueprint class, just an actor. We're going to call this BP underscore damage volume. The great thing about this is we can use this volume in many different places. It doesn't have to be used just once. This is a multi-use blueprint that we'll be able to set it up and use it that way. So I'm going to double click on it and open it up. There is a couple things. Well, actually one thing that we're going to want to do. So right here under default scene root, I'm going to select that. I'm going to hit add, and I am going to type in box. And we want a box collision. And I usually call this trigger box for this type of scenario. And we're just going to leave it like this. It's just going to be this size right here. It's going to be our trigger box. And then over here, I am going to scroll all the way down under details. And one thing about this trigger box is it allows us to overlap, and we can use it for many different things. So whenever our player, we hit compile. So whenever our player runs into this box, overlaps with it, hits it, does whatever we have going on over here, we can have something happen. In this case, we're going to do two things. We're going to use the on component begin overlap, and then I'm going to go back to that trigger box, and we're also going to use on component end overlap. So now they're right below each other. I'm going to drag this one down just a little bit. And one of the things I'm going to want to do is, if I'm going to overlap this trigger box, I want to make sure that the actor that is overlapping it isn't any other actor in the world, isn't like a cannonball or fire or whatever you might be putting in your world. I want to make sure that it's our player. So we're going to right click, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to get player pawn. Okay, so we're going to get our player pawn, and we're going to make sure that the other actor that's overlapping this, and you're going to hit the equals button, and we want this one right here, this function for equal. We want the two equals marks. And we're going to make sure that those are the same. And then we can duplicate this, because we need it for down here as well. We want to make sure that the player is the other actor. And this is going to lead into a branch, because this is going to give us a Boolean output. So it's either true or false. Either it is the actor, our player, or it isn't. So either true or false. So this is a Boolean for us. And we're going to get a branch. And that's going to set the condition. And we're going to also get a branch down here. And I'll just leave this one kind of up like that. Get a branch. All right. So what's going to happen is we're going to make it so that our player, when it overlaps, we're going to hit compile, and we take it back to the viewport. So when our player overlaps this box, and it is indeed our player, then we're going to want to have something happen. And that something that we're going to want to have happen is we're going to want to cause damage to our player. But we're going to need to create a little bit of a function in order to make this happen, because this is going to be a trigger box where, as long as our player is in it, it's going to continually take away health. Now, if we max out our health and put it at 100, like I did in the example, it'll only happen once. The player will die, the game will be over. So that will stop this at that point in time. But if our player leaves, we want it to stop taking damage. So if we just put in a damage, we just put in apply damage, and we set this in here, what would happen is it would only happen once. Now we could drag it off of here and loop it around, and if we put a little bit of a delay in it, it won't cause us to have a endless loop that'll cause our computer to crash. But our player will continue to take damage because of the way that loop is set up, and it will never end until our player dies, even if we set it up so that our player leaves. And then unfortunately, the player it just doesn't work that way with the way this is set up. So we're gonna delete that. What we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to make a function, and we're gonna make a function over here, and I'll show you how we use that function here in a second, because we're gonna call that function using set timer by function name. So we can set a timer so that it continually checks it, and then once we leave, we can clear that timer with the trigger box down here. So there's two functions that will make it so that we can lose damage and cause damage over a period of time, and then when we leave that trigger box, the damage will stop. We can clear it. So we'll show you. Let me show you how that looks. All right. So we're going to make a function over here on functions. We're going to hit a plus button, and we're going to call this one called damage player. And remember exactly how you wrote that, because we're going to need that exact writing of it when we set up our timer. Okay, so this is going to be where we take the apply damage. And remember, in the example, we were able to have a variable that we could adjust for each individual blueprint version of this that we put in the world, because we can have multiple versions of this. So we're going to need to also create a variable. I'm going to hit the plus button, and we're going to call this damage to apply. And we're going to change it from a Boolean to a float, because we're going to want to be able to put numbers in it. It's not going to be a true or false. We're going to open the little eye up so that we can see this and change it when in the world. When we start dropping these in, we can get access to blueprint there. We're going to compile it. We're going to give this a base amount so that we don't accidentally forget and nothing happens when our player does something. And then we're going to go ahead and grab this damage to apply, connect that up right here. But we also need to tell it who the damage actor is. So again, we're going to right click. We're going to get player pawn because that's who we want to damage. All right, so now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and compile and save. We're going to jump back to the event graph. And what we're going to do now is we're going to get a function called, if this is true, the function that we want is set timer by function name, because we just created a function, right? And that function name, if we go over here and click on it like that, we can Control C and copy it because we want it to be exactly the same. And then we can go in here and Control V and paste it. We can also either set a variable so we could change the length of time that it takes to cause the damage. And I kind of like that idea. So instead of hard coding this time, why don't we go ahead and make a variable? And this variable is going to be, we'll just call it timer. We're going to open that eye up to, we're going to compile it. We're going to give this a base amount of about 2.5 seconds because that's what my example was in the world. But you can obviously change this and you can make it different for every single one of the that you put in the world. We're going to go ahead and get that. We're going to plug that in right there. We want this to be looping, so we want it to go around and around and around until we clear it. We don't want it to do it just once. We want to do it multiple times. Now, once the player leaves, and we know it's the player that left, we want to make sure that we clear this function, and that's how we're going to stop the damage from happening to the player. So, if this is true, we're going to go ahead and clear a timer by function name. And Control V, because we copied it already, and we're going to paste that in there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and compile it and save it. Go into the sandbox, and we pull out our BP damage volume. What we can do is we can scale it to be around the size that we want it to be. So I'm going to grab it here, pull it out this way. It doesn't have to be perfect for this demo, but you probably want it to be perfect in your world. So close enough. And then pull it out this way. All right, mine's not exactly as precise, but I'll fix that later. And then we want to make sure we also have the right depth on it. And since this is lava, we're going to have some damage going in and out of it, so something like that. Even if we're falling close to it, we're going to want to have some heat damage, right? So now if I hit play, I should be able to run into that volume and start taking damage. And I am. It is working. All right. That is it for this tutorial. We have now got a way to damage our player. And you can, like I said, draw multiple versions of this out. You don't have to have just one. You can have 2, 3, 10, 100 of these if you need to. And all of them can have a different damage amount based off of what it is that's damaging your player. And again, you can also now adjust the timer so that the timer has different amounts of time too. So maybe it takes longer for some things to start damaging your player than others. So anyway, that's it for this tutorial. If you have any questions or any problems, please go ahead and drop me a note down in the comments section. I'll check it out and get back to you. Again, if you like this tutorial, please hit the like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe so you can kind of follow along. I'll see you next time.